Mr. Duncan, good evening, sir. If you have questions or anything like that that come up between now and the sharing of the recording, you can reach out to Duncan, which I do want to thank him, Duncan Malloy with Startup 425, for coordinating all of this. He's been a great resource and just outstanding partner with SCORE. I would ask that if you have questions, we will pause about midway through for questions. However, if you do have questions before then, please put them into the chat box and we will get them answered. And if we don't have the answer, we will get you the answer. During the seminar, everyone will be muted. And the reason for that is if the doorbell rings, if the cell phone goes off, we just want to be able to keep rolling. And again, I do want to touch on the fact that this seminar is being recorded, and it is being recorded for those that aren't able to join tonight, as well as potentially future dates that Duncan will communicate out to the community of Startup 425. So with that, I'm going to pause my video. Zoom has had some challenges today with sharing video as well as presenting at the same time. So I'm going to pause that. My name is Dean Van Dyke, and I am with SCORE. Duncan is joined with us tonight and will be monitoring the chat box. So with that, let me pause my video. So the resource that you see in front of you is the SCORE Coronavirus Small Business Resource Hub. And it's designed to help business owners as well as potential business owners understand, what's available to support all of us during this time. And SCORE is doing all of our mentoring at the current time is remote via a Zoom call. And during this time, we're available via phone, email, video, and or chat. To find a mentor, you can click this button or this link right here. All of our webinars and workshops are online at this point, and there's some great webinars. We have some great webinars coming up, of which I will show you those. Tomorrow night, we have a marketing webinar, and in the next week, we have options for financing, and that will not be at the Issaquah Library. That will be online. And Janie Seiko, who is a small business banker and an expert in that area, will be providing that to us. And then on the 13th, we will have a networking and mentoring, and I will add that this session will be, it'll be an outstanding session. We actually have a national speaker that will be joining us. And again, that will not be at the Renton Library. That will be online. And after the 13th, remains to be seen whether or not these additional workshops will be online or in person. So again, a wealth of resources from Startup 425 as well as SCORE. And I just wanted to share a little bit about Startup 425 has some response resources here. There is a wealth of information out there. And also, from what I understand, these scams are starting already. So please ensure that whoever you're contacted by and is requesting any type of information from you, that they are legit. And with that, let me close this. Go into presentation mode. Bear with me for a minute. Gotta love technology. Okay. So what you should be able to see right now, and please just throw something in the chat box if you're not able to, but you should see the Small Business Startup Planning with Lean Canvas. And if you're not able to see that, let me know. You don't? Okay, Andrea. So what do you see? See, no one sees the title slide, the SCORE website. Ah, okay. Hang on. That's because it's coming online slowly. How about now? All right, perfect. Let me move the video to my other screen. All right. So with that, we're going to start with some introductions. And so I talked about Startup 425. Duncan, if you could unmute yourself and please introduce Startup 425, that would be great. Duncan, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
There we go.
Thank you for unmuting me, Dean. Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. I'll just be real brief because I know we want to dive into the meat and potatoes here. Startup 425 is an alliance of 5 East Side cities: Kirkland, Bellevue, Redmond, Renton, and Issaquah. And its purpose is to deliver business training and education to would-be entrepreneurs, mostly, sometimes entrepreneurs that are a little bit farther along in their journey. So it's a multi-pronged approach. We partner with SCORE, and for those who don't know, the acronym for SCORE stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives. It's a bit of a misnomer because several of the SCORE representatives actually have either full or certainly part-time employment. Dean is extremely versatile. He has a full-time consulting job and he's a SCORE volunteer when he's not doing that. So we're very pleased to have him run the session for us. KCLS is normally our partner. That's the King County Library System in a physical setting, but for obvious reasons, we're not able to be in the libraries this evening. We're all at home and getting the exact same content, and perhaps even in a bit more secure way, you know, safe in our homes and the like. So the purpose of the format is to give folks basic business information and training, get them at least started along their journey. So I won't take up any more of our valuable time this evening. I'll turn it back to Dean, who's driving the train tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Duncan. And Kathy, would you please introduce KCLS?
Hi, Duncan. Hi, Dean. Yes, King County Library System is very happy to be partnered with SCORE and Startup 425. And we've really enjoyed having the programs in the libraries with the personal contact, but this is a great substitute. And we do have several online books for you that you could check out if you'll go to our webpage and pick ebooks. We also have databases. If you pick online library, you can get some of the databases with some business research for your research needs. And we still answer questions online, and you can contact us and fill in an email form. That's all at kcls.org. Anything else I should add, Duncan?
No, I think that's great. I appreciate that, Kathy. And I am a advocate of KCLS. If you're not a card-carrying member of KCLS, if it's like your American Express, you should get a KCLS library card because right now we all have plenty of time to read books and research, do market research, of which we'll talk about a little bit. But no, I appreciate that very much.
Oh, thank you. You can get an e-card if you haven't already gotten a card. And also Seattle Public offers some e-cards so that you can work from home without coming into the library.
Great. Thank you very much, Kathy. I'm going to put you back on mute. All right, folks. So everyone's going to remain on mute. And again, I think I touched on that a little bit, but you know, doorbell rings, dog barks. It's all somewhat of a distraction. And I am expecting an Amazon package, so I will apologize up front when our doorbell rings. But we'll go ahead and get started. So as Duncan's already talked about, SCORE stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives, and I am not retired. I am what I would consider to be refired, and am excited to be here. And in my, well, I think these are the good years of what I'm in right now. But so with that said, we do have additional workshops coming up. Tomorrow night we have the marketing, and a good colleague of mine, Dave Ormerod, will be hosting that. I will be on the call, but Dave will be leading that. And we have financing your small business will be coming up next week, as well as networking the following week. So we've got a lot of great content coming up for you. And I will admit that even though my life has become Zoom with my clients and with my SCORE mentees, there is still somewhat of a learning curve going on with Zoom. So we have about 300 chapters nationwide. We have a little over 10,000 volunteers, and we've helped about 11 million entrepreneurs. And we at SCORE, we've become really busy as of late, as well as a small business administration, to meet one-on-one with our clients and help them weather the storm that we're currently in. And if there's information that you need from a business perspective, if you currently have a business, please don't hesitate to reach out to Duncan. And we are communicating almost daily and collating all that information for business owners as well. So you can see our website there. If you're looking for a mentor, you can go to seattle.score.org and request a mentor. You can search for a mentor specific to something that you're looking for. For example, if you're looking to open a restaurant or e-commerce site or something like that, we have folks that are specifically experts within that area and can help you. A little bit about myself. I've been a small business mentor with SCORE for, I believe, a couple of years now. I love to present at workshops for SCORE, and have been active in presenting these workshops for just that as many years as I've been with SCORE. I've got 25 years of business experience. I know the face doesn't show that, but that's what I have. Small business coach and consultant, speaker, trainer, veteran of 14 years in the military, and a former adjunct professor, as well as got a wonderful family, 3 wonderful young men, and a beautiful bride who is my hub buddy when I usually do these trainings in person at the libraries. So with that, as we have questions, please don't hesitate to throw those into the chat box. We will pause, as I said before, about midway through, and we will get to those questions. And as questions come up, again, please don't hesitate to throw them into the chat box, and we will get those answered. So we're going to talk a little bit about the good, bad reasons to start a business. Do you have what it takes? And what do you need to know? We've got a 3-phase planning process for you tonight that we'll talk about: quick planning, detailed planning, and formal planning. And then we're going to dive deep into the quick planning with the lean canvas. If you haven't heard of that before, it's a method that you can literally plan your business out on a whiteboard and or canvas, of which we will share an example for you. We will send out the slides as well as the quick, or the links that we can show you here in a little bit about how to get this information. And then also getting help when starting a business via the SCORE workshops and mentoring, as well as at the end, we'll close out with discussion Q&A. So one of the things that Governor Inslee did last year was he formed a small business guidance advisory team. And what this team is about is it really provides resources to businesses within the state of Washington that can reach out directly to this team and get help should they need it via this team. And I'll give you an example. So if you are a veteran and you reach out to the Washington State Department of Veteran Affairs and you run into a roadblock, a hurdle, you can reach directly out to this team that the governor formed and work with a liaison from this team to get your issue solved. What folks don't realize is that within the state of Washington, we actually have 27 different agencies that touch businesses in the state. And the reason that this team was formed was because, one, people would get frustrated. For example, if you have an employee and there's employee claims that need to be resolved, or even with the Department of Revenue, Department of Commerce, this team was designed to help you work through those issues quickly and efficiently. And they have, as you can see here, you can text, chat, email, call toll free. Right now, I will tell you that they are swamped, as are most state agencies, as a result of what we're going through. So be patient if you reach out to them. Have faith; they are there to help you, but just give them a little leeway at this point, because they are, as are most state agencies, are definitely overwhelmed at this point. So one of the things that Kathy touched on is an e-card. There's a lot of great books out there and podcasts, and one of the things that I like to talk about during my classes is that if you're looking to start a business, if you are looking to do something else with your business, there's plenty of books out there that can help you do that. Running Lean, The Lean Startup, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. He's a Seattleite. It doesn't mean you're going to work 4 hours a week, but it's a great book on how to help you structure your week and do things throughout the week. 2 books I highly recommend if you're starting up a business is The Lean Startup and Business Model Generation. Those are 2 good books. The Lean Startup will help you through the Lean Canvas, and then the Business Model Generation will help you understand the different types of business models that are out there. And so in talking about podcasts, one of the things I like to talk about is Automobile University. All of us, I think, on average, sit in traffic 30 to 45 minutes, if not longer, per day, depending on whether or not it's raining. And so there's a great opportunity for you to learn a new language, learn about business ownership, learn about how to generate a side gig, learn about what is some smart passive income that I can generate. And the one there's a few on here that I would highly recommend. The Gary Vee show, now I'll caution you about Gary Vaynerchuk. If you have sensitive ears, it's probably somebody I would recommend you not listen to. He's very frank and direct in his comments, but he's Vayner Digital Media is a result of him building. He formed that after he built his dad's brick and mortar wine business to well over a couple $100 million. So he knows what he's talking about. Smart Passive Income is a podcast as well as a site that's by Pat Flynn. And so these are some of the ones that I highly recommend. And I think Duncan is highlighting them on the screen as I speak. So, and there's everyone today is starting a podcast because the podcast today is the new blog. So there's a lot more out there. And if you have recommendations, the ones that you're listening to, please don't hesitate to let us know what they are. So one of the things I would like to do before we go too far is I'm going to launch a poll. And again, this is something new I'm trying. You should be able to see the poll. And what I'd like you to do is to be able to respond to that poll. I'm moving it as we speak. Can you see it now? Interesting. Nobody can see it. Why? Okay. So I'm still seeing no in the chat box. There's no one can see the poll at this point. Okay. Well, what it was going to be is if you have a business, please respond with yes. If you have an idea for a business, please respond with yes. So in the chat box, we'll adapt and overcome here. If you own a business, please type into the chat box, I own a business. If you have an idea for a business, please type into the chat box, I have an idea for a business. Awesome, awesome. Perfect, all right. Those instructions worked. We will keep moving on. All right, so from a research perspective, one of the things that I highly recommend, and again, Kathy talked about it early on, was that if you have a KCLS library card or a Seattle Public Library card, you have access to their websites, to their online resources. And these databases that you're looking at right here, ProQuest, Business Plans, D&B, Dun & Bradstreet, and Reference USA, these resources could potentially cost you thousands of dollars to access without a library card. And so that's why I highly recommend that you get a library card, because these resources you can access from literally the comfort of your own home and do research for your business. And these are just 4 out of the wealth of information that is available at the library. Now, Business Plans Handbook, that is a wonderful resource because of the fact that as you begin to potentially draft a business plan, you will have access to business plans that have been drafted and these are actual business plans. They've been compiled. It's typically business plans that are seeking funding, and we'll get into more of that in a little bit, but it's a wonderful resource that you can leverage from the library. Reference USA is a great database to locate your first set of customers if you're not a brick and mortar business within the state of Washington. The one thing about Reference USA is they have verified and unverified. The verified are ones that have been actually called by Reference USA to validate that they are an actual business. Those are the ones I would focus on. I would not focus on the ones that are unverified. Some other helpful links to the right there. census.gov, which, by the way, if you haven't filled out your census, please do. It is imperative that we all do that. SBA.gov, deviatebusinessimpact.org, and dva.wa.gov. So let's talk about what are some of the good and bad reasons to start a business. I hate my job or a boss. I'll be honest with you folks, probably not a good reason. I was laid off. That might be a good reason. It may be the motivating factor for you to launch your business. And I'll give you an example. Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income was laid off from his architectural firm, which then prompted him to start SPI. And if you go look at SPI or Smart Passive Income, he has done very well since he was laid off. A friend wants to start a business. This one I'm on the fence with. The reason I say that is because we have to think about who we're going to go into business with. Because I've heard the good and the bad when it comes to a friend and starting a business. I've heard I went into business with a friend. I let that person manage the finances. A year later, I'm $500,000 in debt because they embezzled it. I've heard the opposite. Went into friend with a business. We're doing well. We're knocking the lights out. So you really need to dig deep about who you're going to get into business with. I want an easy job or want to work less. I chuckle at that because as a business owner, you're not going to work less, and it's definitely not going to be easy because of if I think about my clients that I'm talking to right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of worry, and it's a challenge right now being a business owner. I want to save on taxes. I'll leave that one as its own. But you're not going to save on taxes being a business owner initially. And my job is boring. If your job's boring, I highly recommend 48 Hours to the Work I Love by Dan Miller, because he will help you find a new job, one that you love, one that you enjoy. And so I would highly recommend that book to you. And/or Ken Coleman is another resource I'd recommend to you. So I want to work for myself. And that, for some, is a strong motivator. They're tired of working for the person that they've worked for or just being in corporate, and they want to work for themselves. And I want to create or fix something. Now, when you think about that, when Uber was started, they started in San Francisco. And, one of the examples I like to use is how many of us like to hail a cab before Uber and or Lyft? And there's others that are out there. Now, if you'd like to hail a cab before this, throw that in the chat box because I don't usually get too many takers from that. Uber has really flipped the whole, yeah, I've already had one response. I hate cabs. So now we have the ability to get into a vehicle of where you know the driver, you know how much you're going to pay. You can choose to tip the driver what you believe it's worth, the value that's being brought to you by that driver. And so that's what Uber did. Now, it really started to taxi cab companies had to really start to reinvent themselves. Limo companies had to reinvent themselves because of Uber. And that's not a bad thing. When companies stop innovating, that's when they run into trouble. I want to do what I love. I like that statement from the fact that if you can monetize what you love, awesome, go do, because it's something that you're never going to work a day in your life. And as well as this next statement, I'm passionate about my product or service. And so I just think it's one of the great things to do, that if you can monetize doing what you love and you're passionate about something, please go forth and do, because it's one of the things that, you know, you when you do that, you bring your passion, your love in the product or service that you do to the marketplace for others to benefit. So if you think about, do you have what it takes to start a business? Persistent. When you think about persistence, it's really, you know, like when I talk to my son about baseball, baseball is 90% mental and 1% and 10% physical. And it really is. Because when you step into that batter's box and you've got the thought in your head, I've just struck out 2 other times. 9 times out of 10, you're going to strike out a 3rd time. But if you have flushed what you've done the prior 2 at bats, and you are stepping into that batter's box with, I'm going to hit this ball, and it's going to go outside the fence, you have a different attitude. And that's what it takes to be in business. Risk taker. A risk taker, if you think about today's environment, there's a lot of business owners out there that are thinking, you know, how am I mitigating my risk? And it's really, I was on a call just before this, and one of the things that the speaker said on the call is I don't like to think about problems. I have challenges, and that challenge presents an opportunity for me to solve. And it's a mindset. And again, going back to the 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration, it's a lot of things that you have to deal with. Are you disciplined? I love the quote by Thomas Edison, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Competitive. Competition, or co-opetition as I like to call it. And the reason I call it co-opetition is because there is enough out there for everybody. Because it helps you to serve your customer better. Now, if you think about Boeing and the 737, all they have done over the course of many years, and they've done it very well, is to really not reinvent the 737, but they've come up with better engines, better wings, better winglets, better avionics. So they've been able to serve their customer better because of the fact that they're able to modify and innovate the 737. So the next one, can you listen? Can you ask for help? So I had a situation today, a very simple one. Earlier this month, my business card was compromised, and hats off to Boeing Employees Credit Union for calling me and scaring me that my account was compromised. But hey, they called and said, your card's been compromised. So with that, you know, I have a list of folks that within my business that are set up for auto payments. I missed one. I went in when I got the email, immediately tried to update and ask for help. And they're like, well, you need to call you need to call your bank and verify it's not your card's issue. And I said, well, and this is via chat session. I said, well, I've tried another card, my credit card, Visa, issued by a different bank, and I have the same problem. So the representative behind the chat session was trying to tell me I had to call both of those card issuers because it was their fault and not, and I won't go into who it was that I was trying to do this with, but it was not their issue. And I said, I struggle with that because I'm using 2 different cards from 2 different issuers, and you're telling me it's my problem. Now, do you think that person on the other end was listening to me? I would have to say no, because they said it was my problem. I had to call my card issuers, and verify that they weren't stopping the transaction from happening. Never had an issue before until this day. And so, again, can you listen? Can you ask for help? Again, being a business owner and being humble is a key attribute. So this slide I actually struggled with leaving in today. However, I want folks to understand is that the majority of businesses, 50% or more, will fail within the first 5 years, regardless of a pandemic. Regardless of the pandemic, most businesses will fail within 5 years. Now, the reason they fail is, do you have a long enough runway from a cash perspective to sustain it? What's your marketing strategy? Your product uniqueness? If you don't do your market research before you launch your business and you connect with the wrong customers, do you think you're going to be able to sustain that business? Probably not. If you've got a poor revenue or cost model, I'll give you a prime example. If you lock yourself into a long-term commercial lease, depending on the square foot and depending on where you're at, if you lock yourself into a long-term lease with the Regus, with Da Vinci, and they're charging you, say, $1,000 a month for that space, and it's an office down on 4th Avenue in Seattle or even Bellevue, but your revenue coming in is $200 a month, or maybe it's zero, that long-term lease is going to be anywhere from 12 to 36 months, if not longer. So you've already signed the lease for $12,000 minimum, and you've got little to no revenue showing for that. That's not a good model. Poor management, operational control. A few months ago, WeWork went through a situation that they were going to do a public offering. The public offering was, well, it failed ultimately. The CEO lost his job or was asked to be removed. And so from a poor management operational control perspective, you need to think about who is managing the business and who has operational control. Because sometimes the folks that are in control aren't always the best people that you can have. And when we talk about planning, some 30 years ago when I began my career at Gateway with the cow spotted boxes, I had a finance director tell me that when you plan the work and work the plan, you typically avoid failure. And it is so true, because when you take your great idea and you test it, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, when you test your idea, it will help you keep those bad ideas from losing you money. Not always, that's not 100% true, but when you do that, it's going to help you manage that risk. And the quote there that says, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And so the goals that you set before you that are guiding you in establishing this business or with your current business are going to help you manage that risk and mitigate the risk. So to start a business, it's really, when you think about it, it's about project management, and it's really a series of hundreds of small decisions or micro steps, micro tasks that I like to call them. As long as you're taking steps each day towards getting that business off the ground or growing your business, you're more than likely going to succeed. Because at the end of the day, it is those small decisions, it's those micro tasks that you're completing day in and day out that will help you succeed. And we've got a task list, which will be provided to you. I promise it won't be this eye chart that we'll send to you in the PowerPoint, but we have a separate task list that will help you walk through what you need to do to start your business. The one thing, another reason that business.wa.gov team was started in the state of Washington is that in the state of Washington, we've made it very, very easy for you to start a business. And if it's easy to start that business, it's also that much more easy to fail with that business. And so that's another reason why that team was started, is to help folks that are trying to start those businesses understand what does it take to not only start it, but to then get it to grow and operate. And when you think about the planning, of which we'll talk about the Lean Canvas here in a minute, the Lean Canvas is something that you can literally start your business with. It helps you get to a point where it's a term, or it's a phrase called minimal viable product, MVP, and it helps you get to that MVP and potentially to start testing your business. Detailed planning, utilizing the task list that we just talked about, and then also formal planning, which is the business plan. And not all businesses need a business plan. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then business launch. So the Lean Canvas, what does it do? It really helps you to describe your unique value proposition to the market. It also helps you to understand who are the customer segments that I can go after with my UVP, or unique value proposition. It takes you through 9 questions. It helps you to answer and refine those questions. It helps you to really describe what you're trying to do. And it really allows you a solid starting point for detailed planning. Now, when it comes to Lean Canvas, what I highly recommend is, and we do have a template that will be sent. However, what I highly recommend you do is get a whiteboard, is segment that whiteboard into these 9 boxes, and use the mini Post-it notes to answer each of these questions. Now, the reason why I say that is because it will change. For example, when I launched my business, I thought I wanted to focus on the manufacturing sector. I quickly realized that's not where I want to focus my business. So I backed away from that. I pulled that sticky off and put a new sticky on, and that's where I launched my business. So detail planning. So with the checklist that we'll send out, we really talk about choosing your business structure, your entity, your state business license, your local business, making a plan for getting business insurance. If you're seeking funding, there's going to be things that you're going to need to provide that if you're seeking funding from a bank, small business loan, or from the Small Business Administration, which are facilitated through banks, you're going to need to have your credit score, your credit record. They're going to pull your personal credit. They're going to look at the last 3 years of your personal income tax. And so you're going to, and again, I apologize for the doorbell, but my Amazon package has arrived. So they're going to look at your personal credit history. And again, they're going to also want, and this is where a detailed business plan is going to come into play if you're seeking that funding. A marketing plan. Now, the marketing plan, what that's designed to do is really help define who your target market is. Because if you don't know who your target market is, it's going to be really tough for you to get your message out there. And I'll give you a prime example. My youngest son, who is going to be 21, if you were targeting him on Facebook, he wouldn't be there. He's only on 3 social media: Snapchat, which I just learned about 6 months ago, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are the 3 social medias that he uses. So if you thought your target market was on Facebook and it was him, you would not hit him at all. Create your product or service descriptions. Yesterday I had a call with one of my clients and we were talking about the offerings and the products that he offered. He's a photographer. I said, how many different packages do you have? I have 2. Okay, what's your price point per package? He told me, and I said, how many of those do you sell per month? And as we were talking through this, it was enabling him to see that by looking at these via an Excel template, he was able to understand what his revenue is per month, what his typical month looks like. Are there other offerings that he could provide? And there were, such as drone services. And then what's the value that he's being provided to the customers that he utilizes? And one of the things that we talked about yesterday is that he has I believe it's a 360-degree camera. Well, right now, realtors they are able to go one-on-one into the house to show a house. But if you have a virtual view of a 360-degree camera within that home, that allows potential buyers to see that home before they even get there. And so I worked with him on how to structure that new offering and then get that message out to real estate brokers. The financial plan. So this is really going to look at your startup costs. What do you project for sales? Your profit and loss statement, P&L, cash flow, as well as how do your accounting and your tax payments. For example, even though the state of Washington extended the business and occupation taxes, I filed my taxes yesterday. I knew exactly what I owed based on what my revenue was last year, and I was able to account for that beforehand. Those are some of the things that you need to take into account if you're if it's a new business and you've never owned one before. So creating a formal business plan. We do have a template on seattle.score.org that will help you with that. It is it lists each one of these subsections or headers that you see here. This is going to be needed if you are going into a bank looking for a loan to get your business off the ground. You may need it as well if you have a business but don't have business credit established. However, if you do have business credit established, you may not need the business plan to get that loan. What we're going to focus on tonight, though, is the lean canvas, of which we had the template earlier, and we're going to go deep here shortly. Detailed planning, creating that formal business plan. Now, with a formal business plan, if you are seeking funding either from investors and or a bank loan, you will need a formal business plan if you've never had a business before. The reason is they want to see what your thought process is in regards to your business plan and how well it's thought out. The one thing I would caution you on, and there are people out there that are selling these services, is do not outsource the writing of your business plan. You need to write your own business plan. It needs to be in your words. You can use that wonderful database from the libraries to help you draft it, but it needs to be in your words, because you don't want a banker asking you a question about page 36, subsection or section 12.c, and you're and you're stumbling to understand what that question or what that section is. So please write your own business plan. If you need a building lease, of which if you're not a brick and mortar and you're not manufacturing product, I would question whether or not you need a lease. There are plenty of, as we're all learning right now, ways to work from home, work from a coffee shop, and they are much more cost effective to do that than getting a WeWork space or a Regus or a DaVinci. So think long and hard on whether or not you need that lease. If you've got a complex product or business, a business plan will help you think through how you're going to operate your business. And the other thing is when you're launching your business for the first time, most funding, the initial round of funding, if you're not bootstrapping it yourself, will come from friends and family. Most friends and family will ask to see a business plan. So I'd highly recommend, again, if you're not bootstrapping your business, go through the process of creating a formal business plan. And we have S-Core mentors. We will help you through that process. We won't write it for you, but we will help you through that process. So with that, I know we've had a couple questions come through, but if you have questions, please throw them into the chat box. And so yes, we will be sharing the recording. Yes, we will be sharing the presentation as well as the checklist. And I think other than that, that's all the questions I've seen come through. What's the dog's name? Sorry, Duncan. I'll have to ask Camilla. It's just, I love dogs and thought that was the best picture for this time. So, all right, with that, we're going to keep moving along. So quick planning with the Lean Canvas. Really, again, get a whiteboard, section out that whiteboarding into these 9, 10 sections technically, and develop your Lean Canvas that way. Because it will help you walk through your business. It will help you think through your idea. And from in thinking about the Lean Canvas, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with John Seacrest, who runs the Startup Weekend through the Seattle Angel Conference. And he gave us an example of a UW student who went down the coast of Washington one summer offering to build websites. And he would go in, he would do some research to figure out whether or not the business had a website. He'd go in and introduce himself, and he would offer to build a website for them for $365 a year. And he had a few takers, but not many. So he thought about that, and he literally, from a solution perspective and from a marketing message perspective, he changed his message because it wasn't being well received. He walked back in to some of those same businesses and said, hey, I'll build you a website for $1 a day. Well, folks, when we're paying $3, $4, and $5 a day for a latte or caramel macchiato or whatever your flavor of coffee is, that $1 a day seems very inviting if I don't have a website. He financed his way through college and then later sold that company for a few $1 million. And so by changing his message and changing it to something that people could understand and equate with, he was able to sell that solution and solve their problem of not having a website. All right, so we're going to watch a short video. It's going to talk about a vegan restaurant and it will explain the Lean Canvas for you over the course of a few minutes, and then we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. All right, folks, as luck would have it, we're having some audio difficulty. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can't hear me, well, actually, if you can hear me, please give me a yes in the chat box. I am loud and clear. You can read me 5 by 5, as we used to say in the military. All right, so we'll just go ahead and jump ahead. Closed captions. I love the help. Thank you. Hang on.
own lunchbox, which usually he's a vegan, so he doesn't eat meat, milk products, or anything that comes from animals. He also works at Pasila, and he has noticed that the only way for a vegan to have lunch in that area is to prepare his own lunchbox, which usually is a drag. So he had an idea. What if there was a lunch restaurant serving vegan food in Pasila? Is there demand? Would people come? Can he make money? Let's take a look what his idea would look like as a lean canvas. What we have here is a blank lean canvas. Let's start by giving this idea a name, Vegan Restaurant in Pasila. Next we can go ahead and specify who the customers would be. Vegans naturally, but they also would probably need to live or work in Pasila. And to further narrow down the first customer spec, it's easiest for Joe to first figure out if other people like him share his problem. This is a good idea since keeping the first customer definition narrow dramatically helps the next steps, and you can always broaden the audience once there's traction. So maybe 25, 35 years old and with reasonably high income. Done. Next up, the problem. Joe already knows that there are no restaurants in Pasila serving vegan food, and at least for himself, it's really annoying to prepare your own lunch every day. What could be the ingredients of the solution? Joe thinks that his customers would appreciate good quality food, and also the restaurant would obviously have to be nearby the Pasila office complexes. And also the service should be quick since usually people have tight schedules during the workdays. A unique value proposition should boil down how you're different from everybody else and what you're worth paying attention to. In this case, it's quite easy to be the best when you're the only one. And for the unfair advantage, Joe's brother happens to be a chef and a vegan himself. Plus he's also interested in opening his own restaurant. Making vegan food taste exquisite is no simple task, so it's definitely hard to copy. Channels. How can Joe reach the 25 to 35-year-old vegans who work in Pasila? Outdoor ads near workplaces, obviously. Where else are vegans using their time? Vegaanifoorumi for one, Facebook groups. Facebook even lets you target advertisements by age, interest, location, and so on. Joe also thinks that word of mouth has a crucial role in this customer segment. As metrics, it's good to have numbers that are actionable and react quickly. Joe chooses metrics that tell him if his solution box is working. For example, number of returning customers really tell him if people are finding value in his solution. Other metrics that he chooses are quality of food and average turnaround time. At this stage, costs and revenue are best to be left really rough, since all of this is just best guesses. One good tactic is to estimate the customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value per one customer. So how much would it cost to get one customer through the door, and how much would they be bringing money in over their entire customership? Joe's estimate is that it would take 19 euros on average to get one customer, and one customer would visit 30 times on average and pay 12 euros for each lunch. That adds up as 19x as the LTV CAC multiplier, which is in a good territory. It's good to highlight that all of this is just an educated best guess at this stage to validate whether the can.
All right. So first of all, I want to big shout out to Victor, who dropped the link in the chat box. But I do appreciate that, and lesson learned for the next one. So what is the lean canvas and what's the one page? So really what it is it's about being brief, and it's about really it's getting the ideas from your head out onto a whiteboard and or a piece of paper. And it's really, there's no mistakes when you're doing this, and and it's really, it helps guide you into that detailed planning should you need it. The key is don't overthink it. So just add 2 to 3 stickies per box to get yourself going. Walk away from it, have somebody else look at it, have them ask you questions. And as they're asking you questions, it may provoke other thoughts. Because really, at the end of the day, as Luke trusted Yoda eventually, you can trust the canvas to help further your idea, to move it along. And it also gives you a baseline to help with your planning. Because what you're working towards is you've got a problem in the marketplace and you believe you have a solution to that problem. And for example, Amazon is very well known and originally started out as a book seller, but now has morphed into a supply chain company. A lot of folks may think that Amazon is a retail company, but technically they're a supply chain. They own planes, they own vans, they own semis, they own distribution centers, and they're solving the problem of getting products to customers quicker, faster, and more cost effective. And the thing to think about is that when you're working through that problem, are there alternatives? What else is out there? You've got companies now trying to turn themselves around, such as Walmart, from an e-commerce perspective. Walmart had the store footprint, but from an e-commerce perspective, one of their big pitches now is that they're saying, hey, we'll get it to you within, I think, 2 to 3 days with no membership fee. So they're trying to pivot and help change their business model to support the problem of us customers wanting things quicker and more cost effective. When you think about the unique value that you're bringing to the market, I'll go back to my Uber example. What they brought to the market at that current time, and even continues to today, is it wasn't easily copied. Taxi cabs, to hail a taxi cab, you stood on a street or a corner and you waved your hand, or you called. Not many of them had an app on the phone of which you could hail a cab. Some did, but not all. When Uber came on the scene and the app changed and provided that unique value proposition, it really turned the tables on cabs, limos or sedans, however you want to look at them. And it helped to solve that unique problem of customers not wanting to know how much they're going to have to pay, who's picking me up, which car is it, what's the license plate. And it wasn't easy for taxi cabs to pivot and adapt to the new normal of Uber and Lyft. And the other thing too that I like to talk about is a market dominating position. That's something that Uber and Lyft brought to the market. It was very difficult for their competitors to match them because the value that was added by their apps on the phone were much more beneficial to the customer than hailing a cab, and it differentiated them from their competitors. When you think about your customer segments, who are your purchasers? How do they purchase? Who's your early adopters? Who are going to be the first ones that are going to buy the technology? I have a lot of good friends, some who stood in line or still stand in line when the first new Apple iPhone comes out. Not so much anymore, but when they were coming out and the new features were being launched, they were standing in line. Those are early adopters. And those are the customers that potentially will get your business off the ground quicker than those that are considered to be laggards within that curve. The channels with which you're going to get to your customers. Are you going to go direct to your customers? Or are you going to go indirect? Are you going to provide your products or services via Amazon and let Amazon be your storefront? Or are you going to build your own e-commerce site and get them to your customers that way? How are you going to do that? What methods will you use to promote your product and or services? Metrics. So one of the key things right now that I continue to hear is cash is king, and it's true. One of the things today that companies are struggling with is cash. And I'll give you the prime example that hit very close to home, that when this virus situation started to evolve, my bride was initially told, hey, we're going to cover you throughout this. You're going to be paid for however long we're shut down. And one of the things that I know happened was that company looked at their bank account, looked at their number of employees, and said, whoa, time out. Maybe we shouldn't have made that claim. Now, one of the things I would say is that company could have done a great service to their employees and came out and said, hey, you know what? We apologize. We looked at our bank account. We can't afford to do this, but this is what we can afford to do. But they didn't do that. What they did do is they came out with a totally different message. If you are a current business owner or going to be a business owner, please don't ever do that to your team. Always be upfront with them. You may not be able to share all the facts, but please share what you can, be honest, be a servant leader, and lead from the heart. Inventory turns. If you have inventory sitting on the shelf, it is not making you money. It is costing you money. When I was with Gateway, I was brought in to take over the Microsoft licensing operations for Gateway. And when I came in, I did an assessment of the business. I talked with our supply chain, our buyers, and I said, so at the current time, we had literally $30 to $50 million worth of inventory sitting in our warehouses, collecting dust. I said, why do we have that much inventory sitting in the warehouses? Well, we can't shut down production. Okay. Well, how much of that inventory are you consuming each day? We don't know. Okay. How many times per week or even per month does that inventory turn over? We don't know. So I worked with them to help them understand that inventory sitting on the shelf is costing us money. And it's not adding value to the end customer who's getting that computer. And what I did is that I worked with our supplier as well as our buyers, and I said, this is what we need on a weekly basis. And now your supplier is going to say, well, you were buying this, now we're going to do this. They're going to have some reservations, as did our supplier with Gateway. But when you're sitting on $30 to $50 million worth of inventory, and it could be $3,000 to $5,000 worth of inventory, you're going to want to reduce that to as much as you can and only maintain what you need for operations. We were able to reduce that inventory down to $1 million. And when we reduced that down to $1 million, we ensured that we had enough. We had projections for production out for, I think it was 60 days. And so we did a moving average and we looked at that and we said, okay, this is what we need per week. And that's what we had in our warehouse. Because you want to be able to turn over that inventory fairly quickly. Gross profit. Another metric that you need to be tracking along with revenue, because you need to understand what your gross profit is, week in and week out. And there's other key metrics out there from a financial perspective, from an operational perspective, that you can track. But there's a vital few, and these are just some examples. But depending on the industry that you're in, you want to be tracking those key metrics. Cost structure. When you're thinking through your business, you really want to understand how much does it cost for me to acquire a customer. A new customer is going to cost you more than maintaining an existing one. How much is it going to cost me to distribute my product? Am I going to sell via an e-commerce site and then I have shipping if it's a physical product? Am I going to sell a course via an e-commerce site? What is that distribution cost to the end consumer? If you have a team, your two biggest costs in a business are typically going to be labor and potentially marketing. But what you need to think about as well is that the funding that you need to start your business. Are you going to need a physical site? If you get that physical site, are you going to need to do site improvements? What equipment are you going to need? Inventory, opening costs. Startup costs is something that we typically underestimate. And then think about your monthly fixed costs. Salaries, rent. Are you going to take a salary as a business owner? Utilities, bookkeeping. Now, some of these items, I always advocate that you would have various folks within your community or tribe, such as an attorney, an accountant, a bookkeeper, a mentor. Now, I've got all of these within my community, and not all of them charge me a fee for doing the work. I'll give you an example. If I have a contract, I have a brother who's a lawyer that I send the contract to. Now, I have to check myself as far as how quickly I expect that to be returned, because it is my brother. He is an attorney. And if it takes him a week, it takes him a week. But at the end of the day, how much did that cost me? Zero, other than time. My accountant, on the other hand, that's a different story. That does cost me. So you have to keep in mind, if you have the ability, or if you have folks within your circle, within your network, that are willing to help you as you're starting up, or even as you're in business, don't hesitate to reach out to them. They're more than likely willing to help you. When you think about revenue, what is my revenue model? Am I going to be transactional? Am I going to be recurring? If it's transactional, it means you buy that widget, or they buy that widget from you, you get paid for that widget. That's all you're going to get. If you're a recurring model, which is what I use with my business, it's a recurring model month over month that I can then forecast out what my potential revenues are going to be. What are you going to charge? If you charge, depending on what the market will support, and depending on the location, you have to understand what those are. How do you find that out? When you call your co-op petition, you cold call them, or you ghost call them. You literally find out who and how much they charge. Or you're a secret shopper. If you're selling a widget, go find somebody else that's selling that same widget and see what they're pricing it at. So there are ways that you can do that without, so that you understand what the market will support. And that will all go into your financial model, of which SCORE has templates that can help you with that. And these templates, really, you plug the information in and it does the calculations for you. And it helps you to understand, what your model is going to look like. If you're in the restaurant business, you're going to want to, are you going to be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Or are you going to be open for just lunch and dinner? I believe there's a restaurant here in Issaquah that's only open for breakfast and lunch. And they have wonderful food. But then they have to understand, what is the average spend of a customer that comes in for breakfast? What's my average spend for the customer that comes in for lunch? And all of that will go into your product mix as a restaurant owner. If you're going to open like a toy store or something that sells products, you're going to need to understand what you're going to price those products at, what that product mix is going to be. How many of those are you going to sell per month? What's your forecast? So as you're developing that, it will then help you to understand and feed that comprehensive business plan should you need one. So you've got the canvas and you're wondering, what do I do next? Well, the canvas is really your high-level business plan. It's going to give you that framework. It helps you to dive into that detailed planning. And it's really going to help you as you walk through that small business essentials task list. We do have, as an additional offering, additional workshops that will be coming later in the summer that will help you dive deep into a business plan should you need one. We also have some other courses as well. Through that series, they're about 3 to 4 hours in length. There is a fee associated with those. I believe it's $50 per workshop. And you actually start to develop each one of these: Lean Canvas, business plan, marketing plan, and your financial plan. And again, with SCORE, we've got mentors that are here to help you. And we are, again, all of our sessions at this point are virtual. And with that, I wanted to thank you for your participation tonight. Thank you for some of the technical challenges we've had. Appreciate all those that have contributed to help solve those. And I got a question here, and so we're going to open it up for questions. So when is a good point to discuss risks with your partners? Is there a way to capture them in the Lean Canvas process? So who are your partners? Is it your partners that you're forming the business with? Business partners? So your Lean Canvas will help to potentially identify some of those risks, but an alternative to that is, as you're thinking of the risk, I would actually create some type of risk log so that you're capturing them. And that way, as you're talking with your business partners and working with them, you talk through the Lean Canvas and/or business plan, and then you also talk about your risks and bring them out into the open so that everyone can talk about them. There's really not, in the Lean Canvas, it's not really something that you're talking about risk at that point, but I would create a separate risk log and use that log to then facilitate that discussion with business partners. So the other questions is what size do I recommend for a whiteboard? 3x5 or 4x6? Raised, okay, so the next question, whether you should draw a salary or not. I don't have a rule of thumb. It's what the business can support is what I'd recommend. Typically, most business owners don't draw a salary right out of the gate or within 12 to 18 months. It really depends on what the funding, what capital is there to support it. What other questions? I might add that most businesses don't make a profit the first couple of years as well. And I would agree with Duncan, is you don't want to become a permanent volunteer in your own business. So the question is does that mean as a business owner you should secure other sources of income to support your expenses before going into entrepreneurship? So there's a lot of schools of thought that say you should have 6 months in the bank, you should have 12 months in the bank, you should have 18 months in the bank. The person in my network had 30 days, went out and is now crushing it. So if you have the opportunity to develop a side gig, basically you've got some other full-time position that's supporting your expenses, and you can then launch into entrepreneurship as a side gig, that might be a route to go. It's really at that, what risk are you willing to accept by becoming an entrepreneur or business owner? Does that help? Do you have any special advice for professional service providers, e.g. consultants, coaches, when it comes to identifying your unique value proposition? Absolutely. And I'll give you mine, and this may help you structure yours. So as a business coach and consultant, if I meet with you for the first time and you say, so what do you do? First thing I'm going to say is whatever it takes. The second thing I'm going to say is I will find you a business owner, $10,000 to $50,000 in new revenue without spending a dime in marketing and or advertising within 45 minutes or less. That will get me another conversation. Does that help answer that question? Because you do need to identify your unique value proposition as any business owner. So Duncan, I don't see any other questions coming into the chat box, so I'm going to unmute you or not. We do have one more question. So no, I'm not saying it has to be expressed in cost savings or revenue generating. What I'm saying is you need to define what your market dominating position is, whether if you're a leadership consultant or if you're a leadership coach, what is the value that you're bringing to your customers? That was just my example that I used. Mr. Duncan, any final words?
I don't have anything terribly critical to add, Dean. I just want to thank you for doing a wonderful job in these trying circumstances we're all contending with, and being flexible. And the same goes for all the participants. I know you plan to have this in the Bellevue Library, and for all kinds of obvious reasons we're not there now, but I just want to thank you for being flexible as well, and for getting the core message here. I will tell you that having had the pleasure of attending many of these in person and lots of stuff online, but first time online with Dean, and with this deck that he's just walked us through, I do not think he's missed a beat. I think you can feel good about getting the core of this message through this remote format. The only thing which we really can't solve for is there just would have been a little bit more back and forth in the setting itself if we were in the library, but with this chat box, even that's a good proxy for that. So I just want to thank everybody, Dean especially, for pivoting and doing this in the way that we've just done it. In the next, probably no more than a day, I will send everybody who's on the call with us now, and even those who thought they might be here but were unable to for whatever reason, I'll send you the deck that we just walked through. I'll probably send you some handouts that Dean typically gives out. And if Dean can help me in a clean way, send you the recording of this, or at least how to access it, I'll send you that too. So thanks again for your participation.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank everyone as well for, behind the scenes. I just want to Duncan's been a phenomenal partner in this as we have pivoted, and we have, really taken these from being in person to online. And I appreciate everybody's patience tonight as we've kind of worked through some technical challenges. Hopefully they're fixed for tomorrow night. And we definitely appreciate all those that attended and all those that, have asked questions and join us tonight. So thank you so much. We appreciate you attending, and have a great night. Stay safe, and please join us tomorrow night if you have the time, 6:30 to 8:30, and we'll be talking about marketing.